Hey guys, welcome back to yet another Mario Kart ranking video. Today we'll be having a look at all the tracks in Mario Kart 7 and we'll be ranking them from worst to best. Now, I did put up a poll a few weeks ago and you guys surprisingly wanted to see me cover this game. Now, I don't have the longest history with Mario Kart 7, but it is still a great game, and this list was actually pretty difficult to make because this game has so many great amazing tracks. So if you see something that is low, that does not mean I don't like the track. It just means that there are some that are better than others. But anyway, here we go. Now, like I said, it was not easy trying to put this list together, but one track stuck out to me that I didn't really like too much, and that track being Cheep Cheep Lagoon. This track alone is very forgettable for me, and there isn't anything special going on either. I mean, I can get behind it being the first underwater track and showing the player what being underwater's like, but that's kind of the whole point. It was just to show what underwater's like. But the track's also very wide and slow pace for my liking. The clams underwater are a nice touch though, but that's about it. A track that I still question why it is in the Mario Kart 8 Booster Pass, we have Toad Circuit. It isn't that bad for a beginner track. I do like the Toad balloons and the glider section that opens up. Nothing too interesting going on, but it isn't really meant to stick out. It is just a starter track. The music's nice though. I might cop so much hate for this, but SNES Rainbow Road is really not that interesting. Now, I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion, but it's just flat. The course is in the sky, and there are a few thwomps here and there. If I'm being honest though, I've played this track so many times, especially because everyone chooses it in online, that I'm just kind of sick of it at this point. And in Mario Kart 8, they did that track much better. I really don't see the appeal. Just because the road celebrates Pride Month doesn't make it a god tier track. Another beginner course, we have Luigi Raceway. This track is actually quite charming with the confetti and the Luigi balloon, and I do like how they didn't change too much from the original. And it feels simple yet fun. It is actually one of the more longer tracks out there, but that's fine. Next up is Mario Circuit 2. I mean, at least they chose the best SNES Mario Circuit. Nothing much changed except adding a glider section where the jump was, which is actually a pretty good idea. It is fun to play on it if you're up for it, but otherwise, it's just another circuit track. Number 27, we have Neo Bowser City. Is it just me, or is playing this in the game way more fun than in 8? But anyway, I'm sorry if this track isn't as high as most of you guys would want it, because it is a visually stunning track, with a lot of nice colors and windy turns. And I do like how it's set at night while it's raining. But for me, it just lacks the fun value. I'm not too sure why, it's just, I don't know. Alright. I've talked about DK Pass in my DS video, and I didn't give it a high ranking because it wasn't that enjoyable. And I mean, it kinda stays the same here. They didn't change much besides the graphics, but I will give it points because it is a very peaceful track, especially with its music. But again, there's just a better DK Snowy track out there. Speaking of peaceful tracks, we have Calamari Desert. This track is one of the better desert tracks as well. I mean, it has the infamous train. I like the music and the amount of time you can save by mushrooming through all the sand. It's a good track. Mushroom Gorge is still a pretty good track, my only complaint being the mushrooms are too wide and it's way easier. But that isn't really a bad thing. The biggest difference being the glider mushroom, which I think is a good change. It just doesn't have the charm like it does in Wii, but I'm still glad it's here. I was actually surprised about how enjoyable Bowser Castle 1 was in this game. It's short and it looks amazing, and has an awesome theme with a few hazards to avoid and boost panels, as well as that cool glider section that opens up as the race goes on. I always have fun on this one. I've always liked Koopa Troopa Beach. It has a great atmosphere and it's simple yet enjoyable. I love the added glider section leading into the tunnel and over the shell as well. Just watch out for the crabs at the end, but overall, easily one of the better beach levels out there. They didn't change too much with Dino Dino Jungle, but they didn't really have to. You get led into the jungle, avoiding getting trampled, and then you go into the wooden bridge, then into the cave where you have to avoid stuff like geysers, and the added glider section when you come out is pretty cool. Love it. Luigi's Mansion is great. I like the spooky mansion, the eerie music, and how it leads into a muddy area with all the walking trees. But again, it's not really much of a mansion, and more like an empty hallway, but it's still a classic, and who doesn't like it? I like mountainous tracks, and Rock Mountain is no different. I know that you spend half the time gliding, but it still looks awesome how you get to start by driving in a small cave, then you glide down into a forest and have to go up a very steep mountain, while big boulders fall onto the track, while you have to go on the right boost panel, otherwise you'll get squished. And yeah, this track definitely does take gliding to the extreme. One of the more unique tracks out there is Piranha Plant Pipeway. I like how you race in the sewers while you have to avoid some piranha plants, then glide into a different part of the track. I also like how you can kind of skip a turn while gliding at the end. Very fun. I like Donkey Kong, and I certainly like DK Jungle. It has an interesting layout while you're driving through the jungle, and drive into the temple, and then glide outside while those weird tiki head things scream at you. It's not a track that I ever hear people talking about, and it's actually pretty awesome, especially in 8 Deluxe. Cooper Cape unfortunately does not get a higher ranking than you would think. That's because I don't really like the changes that they made. Like how you glide past half the rushing water section and the tube is just completely filled with underwater with nothing going on besides a few Cheep Cheeps. Other than that though, it's still Cooper Cape and it's fun to race on. Raise your hand if you're mad that I'm putting Waluigi Pinball way down at 15. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, I'm sorry, but I have said this before, but it's just nowhere near as good as people say it is. Like, I can't deny, it is a good track, I'm just kind of sick of people craving for it to the point where it kind of just devalues it for me. I don't know if that makes sense, however the good in it is definitely its visuals, the small sound effects, and an interesting layout. I also hear a lot of people say that the track sucks because there is no shortcuts, and most of the track doesn't take place in a pinball machine, which isn't entirely true. Just because a track doesn't have shortcuts doesn't mean it's bad. N64 Rainbow Road for an example, in Mario Kart 8. That doesn't have any shortcuts and everyone praises the shit out of that. Whether you believe Waluigi Pinball does or does not 100% make you drive in a pinball machine is entirely up to you. Even if it doesn't, who cares? Anyway, this is the best way I can possibly describe it, because I know it's beloved by pretty much everyone except me. Just leave the Waluigi sheeps to sit in their bedroom that can't appreciate anything else alone. An actual good track, we have Woohoo Mountain Loop, or whatever it's fucking called. I much prefer the other one, which we will get to later, but this one is still awesome. I like how it's a section track around the island, but you start off on the road and then head into a cave, then head on top of the mountain, only to glide off into one of the most epic endings to a track in all of Mario Kart. This would look glorious in a remake. Here we have Coconut Mall, a track that we can all agree is great. They got rid of the giant balloon, how could they? This version isn't as good as the one on the Wii. I'm not a huge fan of the arrows on the escalators because it takes away from the fun and it also looks weird. I do enjoy the glider section at the end, but it doesn't really matter, it's Coconut Mall. We all like it. On the more unique side of things, we have Wario Shipyard. This is another track I never hear anyone talk about, and I think that it's awesome how it takes place in a shipwreck, and you have to avoid stuff like swinging anchors and crabs. I especially like this turn right here. This track should get the recognition it deserves. It's great. Shy Guy Bazaar is one of the coolest settings out of any track. I love the Arabian theme and how it's set at night, and you can drive through the market as well as glide as you watch the Shy Guy on the magic carpet flying around. I love this track a lot, it needs a remake. Starting the top 10 is Rosalina's Ice World. Apart from the terrible name, this track is actually one of my favourite snow tracks out there. I like how you start off by going in this weird ice slide thing, then you can go either underwater or on top of the ice. And it also looks and plays good in the cave section. This game's version of Mario Circuit is my favourite Mario Circuit of all time, because it feels simple and I love the details like the cherry blossom trees, bouncing mushroom, and how you can drive in Peach's castle, then glide outside where you can hover on top of the pipes, then drive into a small tunnel. It's an awesome track, I love it. Bowser's Castle in this game is pretty ambitious and a bit less crazy than Wii's, but it is still very good. I like the multiple routes at the start where you can choose to go either on top, or the bottom, or even on the sides, as well as going in or on top of the barrel later on. It's also weird how there are lava geysers underwater, and this track also has a really cool finish where you can go through the circle in the sky. I think that Daisy Cruiser is one of the best Double Dash tracks, and they thankfully delivered well here with some awesome changes, like how you can drive through the pools. They also flooded the bottom part of the ship, which I think is an awesome idea. Either way though, this track has always been good, and I'm glad we have a track that takes place on a cruise ship. Airship Fortress is one of my favourite DS tracks of all time, and yeah, I know we're all sad that it's probably not coming to the booster pass. But anyway, this track is taking place on airships, and you have to avoid stuff like bullet bills, rocky wrenches, and fire, and it has an awesome vibe to it. I talked about it on my DS video, nothing changes, and it is still an awesome track. Here's an extremely unpopular opinion, but Daisy Hills is getting top 5. I know it sounds crazy, but I just love this track heaps. The track isn't very long, but I think it's cool how you scale up a small mountain and go on a few bridges, avoiding stuff like goats, and then go on a very long gliding section where there are a bunch of balloons in the sky, and it just looks so gorgeous. You even end up in a small town at the end, and it's great. Who doesn't love Maple Tree Way? It was awesome on Wii, and it still 100% holds up on the 3DS. It's probably the only Wii track on this list that didn't really get messed up too much. The only change really being the glider section at the end, which is fine I guess, though I do miss the bridge. Either way, excellent track with an awesome aesthetic and theme. Best retro track in Mario Kart 7 for me. Yes, Rainbow Road. Most consider this being the best Rainbow Road, and I can certainly see why. There is so much to see and explore, and you get to drive on the rings of Saturn and the moon for God's sakes. It perfectly represents a 3-section track, and an awesome music to go with it really tops it off. What a great way to end the Special Cup. There's just so much to explore, and it is a huge adventure. You get to go in tunnels, glide, through rings, there's just so much to see. One of the best tracks in all of Mario Kart that I never hear many people talk about is Melody Motorway. This takes the music theme to the absolute limit by making most of the roads instruments, like how you can drive on the keyboards and bounce off the tambourines, and they even make sounds when you drive on them. It is so cool, and you can't resist the head-bopping piranhas and the bouncing music notes. This track is an absolute joy to play, and even in 8, this track is a huge banger for me. Well, some of you may be surprised with my number 1 pick, but this to me goes to Woohoo Island. I'm not gonna lie, it was a huge toss-up between this track and Melody Motorway, but I settled with Woohoo Island because it's just so freaking awesome, and such a good idea. And I know what you're thinking, why is Woohoo Island number 1 but Woohoo Mountain is way back at 14? And that's just because Woohoo Mountain doesn't explore the map fully, and just focuses on the air and the mountain ranges. But this track explores more in the more iconic areas like the Red Bridge, Woohoo Town, and all that. I'm also such a huge Wii Sports Resort fan, so I was glad that this track became a thing. Also, why in the actual fuck has this track never been remade? Both Woohoo Island tracks are the only Mario Kart 7 courses to have never returned back. And yes, I'm including Tour. I just think that's silly, but seriously, this track is such a cool idea and extremely fun for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and post your opinions down in the comments. Have a good day everyone. Peace.